Okay, so we're doing a Ford E350 bus conversion, shuttle bus conversion to a motorhome, and we're looking right now at the rear heater. So most buses like this are going to have a rear heater. It's going to be a heater core type system. So if you look at these two hoses, you've got engine coolant coming in on one hose and flowing back to the engine on the other hose. So makes it a little more difficult. You can't just unbolt these and pull them out because we have to deal with these coolant hoses. I've seen a number of videos on here, and generally what people do is cut off the hoses. They'll either cut them off under the bus or cut them off, right at the heater, and then pull them through with some buckets under to catch any coolant flowing out. And they'll put an elbow, basically connecting those two hoses together, so the engine coolant, makes a cycle in one hose through the other back to the engine. Basically the same way it works when the heater is installed. So what I noticed, I was crawling under the bus, and there's actually shutoff valves in this bus on these coolant lines. So in theory, I should be able to crawl under there, shut off those lines, disconnect the hoses past the shutoff, and just detach everything. And in theory, I should be able to leave it like that, or maybe even probably the right thing to do is to put an actual cap, like a more permanent cap on the end of the shutoffs. But something to make it a little bit easier. I imagine it's probably pretty standard that most buses would have a shutoff somewhere for hoses with this long of a run. If anybody's trying to do this on their own, it might be a little bit simpler. So I'm going to crawl under the bus. I'll show you what it looks like under there. Okay, so it's pretty hard to see. You're just going to be seeing like this black blob right here because this bus has been undercoated with some sort of foam. It makes everything a little bit harder to spot, but this black blob here is actually where the hoses go through the floor, the hoses we were looking at earlier. And if I scoot back, here's those hoses. They follow down through the engine chassis, and ultimately they come out right here. And if you notice, I'll try to get a little bit better shot. We've got shutoffs. So in theory, I'll be able to twist these closed, detach the hose right here, and have hopefully minimal coolant loss. There's going to be some coolant in the hoses, obviously, so there will be some that will drip out when I do it. But hopefully, just whatever's in these hoses. And then I'll see about, once I get a look at it, maybe I'll figure out some sort of permanent cap, or I don't know, maybe these shutoffs are good enough, but we'll see how that goes. And that's what it looks like with the heater removed. It's been several days. I got distracted and kind of forgot that I hadn't finished the last bit of this video, but I was able to close off the coolant line shutoffs. Just twisted both of those closed, detached the hoses from the shutoff valve, and there was quite a bit of coolant in those hoses, obviously, and of course a bunch of it burped out as I was disconnecting the hoses and kind of made a mess. But other than that, it was fine. So after I got the heater out, coolant lines disconnected and everything, I went ahead and just started the bus engine, made sure the dash heat still worked. I just wanted to make sure it didn't somehow interfere with the heater cord in the dash. And everything was good. Ran the engine for a while, made sure it wasn't overheating or anything, like I had disrupted the coolant flow to the engine or anything like that by just shutting both of those off. I did not complete the fluid loop, so I just shut the valves off, and so far I've done nothing else. And for now, that seems to be fine. The proper way to do that, to kind of complete this, would be to kind of disconnect those hoses, maybe at the engine, and cap them off there, but that's more involved than I want to get into at the moment. So as it is, just shutting the lines off seems to be fine. No issues with it. So heater's out and we're all good. And so maybe next I'll get around to the mess that I made inside here while we were just tearing everything out. So it's kind of a disaster. There were leaks everywhere, tons of water damage, but we'll get there somehow.